So we have this major news outlet, the New York Times, throwing its weight around to try and destroy this teenager's life, a sacrifice on the altar of wokeness in many ways. Now, I've given my thoughts on the purpose of this piece behind it, but I'd like to get your take on it.
Well, I think it's remarkable as it is outrageous. I mean, as you laid out the details of the case, here's a girl who's having her life destroyed, or at least an attempt on her life, for the crime of having, when she was 15 years old, used a slur. Now, the context of her use of the slur is interesting and noteworthy. She was singing a rap song of the sort that's promoted and celebrated in a ubiquitous fashion in our culture. So she had the temerity to sing along to the type of song that's promoted everywhere in America's popular culture. And she was a Black Lives Matter supporter. There are so many different bizarre dimensions to this. And one of her erstwhile friends had this video recording of her using this slur, singing along in a rap song when she was 15 years old. And that was sufficient to create such an uproar that she was booted out of her cheer team. She was disinvited from university, which had accepted her. And now the New York Times, once the nation's paper of record, now clearly a joke that's digging so far deep into the trash bin that they have nothing better to report than a story of some unknown 15-year-old girl who used a slur once when she was 15. It's like, it really is, the story is in itself a kind of bonfire of the vanities, if any of your viewers know that reference. And it just, there's so many angles, but it really just underscores how deeply unserious our country is. First of all, that she wasn't even using the word in a malicious context. But secondly, what kind of country are we that operates on a hierarchy of taboos in which using one word is elevated above being a murderer, being a rapist, being a traitor, all these negative things? It seems like using one word or stepping on racial sensitivities, our entire country goes into convulsions, bending over backwards in order to adhere to these crazy and insane racial sensitivities. It's the markings of a country that's fundamentally unserious.
And it never ends either. You can never be woke enough because this poor girl, Groves, she also was a BLM supporter back when the whole George Floyd situation first broke out in late May. She was
Right.
posting online, saying to go out there and to mobilize, to march and to protest. And yet she started
Right.
getting all these flooding of all these comments of people.
That's another, yeah, thank you. That's another interesting angle in its own right. Now, on one hand, we can say, oh, look, she's a Black Lives Matter supporter, which adds the evidence that she didn't use the term maliciously, and in that sense kind of helps her case. That's certainly one angle. But I think another angle we can take on this is to note that being a Black Lives Matter supporter does not inoculate you from this virus of political correct attacks. In fact, if anything, associating with the woke mobs increases the probability dramatically that they will destroy you. And so I think for young people, if you're a young white person, you think that doing Black Lives Matter, it doesn't matter. What matters is basically that you're white and therefore you're vulnerable to this bizarre racial hierarchy that's been constructed by our corrupt ruling class in order to exert their control. And you can't get out of it simply by following the fashions and fads. And as this poor girl learned the hard way. And so it's really just an illustration that there's no appeasing the mob. So you might as well stand up to them.